ASAP, baby.
Yeah, this counts as Christmas. We're doing Christmas till mid-January, I think, is what we're trying to do.
We haven't taken down any of the decorations. I've thought about it. Maybe tomorrow. Is today Saturday or something?
Today is Saturday.
All right, maybe tomorrow then.
What a way to intro the episode. Today is Saturday, the 2nd of January, 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this app. As always, it's your boy, Dave Neal and Tasha Courtney, with a newfound neighbor guest of ours,
Yes.
Lisa Reed. How are you?
I'm doing great.
It's so nice to have you on here today with a several-month-old puppy.
Yes.
Who's joining us as well, Xander. So big shout out. We're now a puppy podcast. Wouldn't that be nice if we made guests bring a puppy every time they're on the show?
And then you just watch the puppy cam on YouTube.
Yeah, there's a puppy cam. Yeah, for those audio only people that we have a big listenership on the audio, you're gonna have to head over to the YouTube for this one because we've got a camera just on Xander alone. Welcome, and then I wanted to tell everyone how we got to where we are today, and then maybe you could share your side of this story. But
Sure.
I have been doing live streams for Bachelor Nation. I've been doing recaps for years, but live streams starting this quarantine. And you had mentioned as a commenter on the live streams that you also lived in Koreatown, which is always going to spark my interest when we have a neighbor friend. I believe I've invited you to just come to the window of my apartment just to watch it in real life. Trying to build a real audience here.
Yeah.
But welcome to the neighborhood. And then, thanks for, first of all, being a part of the little Bachelor crew. We appreciate that.
Of course. Thanks for doing it.
How did you find it?
Okay, so this is kind of, I think, the funnier part. If we're going to talk about relationships, I found you through your Colton Underwood video.
Yeah, no, a lot of people found I guess my content through that one specific video. Isn't it weird how YouTube will just immediately say this is going to be the...
Yeah, they were like, here you go. This is, because it just popped up on my YouTube feed. And I've been watching Bachelor recap podcasts for a while, and I'd never seen yours or anything, so it just was interesting that it was that one in particular.
Well, you know how annoying it can be on my end because here you are, you watch and listen to the Bachelor content. Here I am, probably live 100 yards away from you, making this content, and then it's up to YouTube just to decide when it's worthy.
Yeah.
And you get all these people, and I'm kind of bitter towards this, but I hate the side of Bachelor Nation that it's if you were on the show, you're verified, and you're now some expert. I'd rather talk to you about your dating life than Joe Blow, who was on Bachelor in Paradise, who someone in a pool on at Bachelor in Paradise or whatever. That's all it is, right?
On Instagram or whatever. And I think did that video come out in October, early October?
Yeah, around then. Yeah, September, October.
Yeah, so I think it came out right after I had gotten broken up with my boyfriend that we will talk about. And so I remember watching it and feeling like I could relate in a way to being the codependent one in a relationship. So it was actually just very strange timing in that I was reflecting a lot about how I am in relationships and why this particular breakup was hard for me to deal with. So it was just really wild timing, and now I'm here. I don't know. It's just it's kind of.
Well, you know what's interesting to me, and Tasha, you guys could tell me if you agree or disagree. I talk a lot about gender on the podcast because I'm always looking at how men think versus how women. And I know individually we're all on a spectrum, but there are vast differences with certain things. And women love Bachelor. They love Bachelor Nation. I know from my analytics, 90% of the listeners or viewers on my YouTube are women. You can they can break it down for you, and I wonder, are women better at empathizing with who's on the show? Do you put yourself in the situation of who you're rooting for or the lead of the show? Is it something where you can just get into it more that way than most guys can? I don't know, because I'm pretty empathic with the show. I watch it and root for certain guys, and that when it came to the Colton Underwood video, I've never tracked someone with a car. I've totally been obsessive.
Right.
So whenever everyone's I wouldn't do that, it's well, you don't know what you would do or wouldn't do,
Yeah, I definitely, I don't know about the show in particular if I feel I relate to the contestants, but that's, I think, partly because their dating on the show is so different than what it's like.
Yeah, it's so different from real life. Yeah, we're not flying to Paris for a weekend.
And you don't often see the breakups as publicly. Carly and Evan broke up recently, but I feel they're not sharing why, which is totally fine. But I think the Colton situation was so public, and he displayed those kind of obsessive tendencies in a way that I think most people, even if they have them that are on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, don't. Like, you just won't know.
It's like you can only see it through. It's like you can only see it through. When celebrities, like O.J. Simpson was one we compared him to, because when it comes to celebrities, you can like track their history and see interviews they did and this and that. But with normal people, it's like, well, if you had a crazy ex-boyfriend, no one in the world is going to know about it, so they're not going to be like, oh, he was crazy to me too. Or whereas in the Colton Underwood instance, you've got a guy who was, gaslighting, manipulating and doing all these tactics.
Yeah.
Probably for the simple reason of wanting love, but through all these toxic... I related it back to Boone, how he cries all night, and it's like he just wants us to pet him, but if we pet him, he's just going to learn that crying gets him that. And Colton was just sort of like years behind and where he probably should be as like a late 20-something person, where like I feel like that's something you might do in your first relationship.
Yeah, your teens, when you're just figuring out like what is appropriate ways to handle a sour situation and what isn't.
Yeah.
And then the whole end of that story is he finally got back on Instagram, but he still hasn't stated anything. He basically said his ex Cassie was right in filing the police report, but he never admitted to it. He kind of just, stuck behind the legalese of it all. And I think people that you watch someone, get this public platform, you kind of want an answer to all their issues. And that's why I made those videos, because anyone within the Bachelor community that's getting paid by The Bachelor didn't talk about it.
Not going to say a word.
Oh, yeah. Because they're just trying to stay away from it as far as possible. I definitely could relate in other relationships too. Like, I can admit that when I was doing my undergrad in college, I was 18, and I had a boyfriend who I dated for like a year or something, and he broke up with me and got together with some girl like a week later or something, and I was super hurt by this, and I absolutely lost my mind. I would go bang on his room door all the time. Like I was acting crazy, and at the end of the day, it was harmless. Like, I wasn't, hurting anyone, but it could have escalated. I feel like if I hadn't gone through that, I couldn't have known that that is something that I'm capable of. Like, I am aware that I usually handle breakups pretty badly, and I need to really distract myself, or I will ruminate on it over and over. And who knows, like, just because, like, I guess the other interesting thing to me about the whole Colton situation is, like, I think a lot of women came forward and said they've had men behave that way towards them. And I felt almost like a little bit like out of place. Like, well, I'm the one who's behaved that way towards my ex-boyfriends.
Yeah. People will...
But so it can happen to anybody,
Women will light their ex-boyfriend's room on fire. I know so many stories, but the difference is in most cases the man is not in fear of his life on a physical level.
That's the difference. Yeah, someone stalking you, standing in your alleyway. Like, I for sure have done just the same as you. I had a drunken bang on somebody's door one night, and looking back, it's so embarrassing. Like, I like to think that I handle myself like very
Tasha, you got drunk and banged on the guy's door?
Yeah, and then I peed on the street. Yeah, I was pretty hammered. I'm pretty sure I laid down on the stoop for an hour or so before I had the strength to walk myself back. This was in New York. But, I've done plenty of things that I'm 100% embarrassed about. Right. And I have handled breakups very poorly. I know that about me. But in real life, in normal life, I'm a very rational person. So it's true that, you laugh. I think it's a slippery slope, and it's so good when you can recognize, this is something that's not going to be easy for me. I know going through a breakup is not going to be easy for me.
I'm just mad. I can't believe we haven't gotten, with all the fights we've had, we haven't gotten to Tasha peeing in the alley sort of anger. That's how I'll know when I really piss you off. And I go, oh boy, she's in the alley. She's going for it. Yeah, I remember in a relationship where the girl I was dating recoiled, wouldn't talk to me and wouldn't share her emotions, which was really annoying to me because I wanted to fix the problem. And we were driving in the car, driving in New England on a busy highway, and I had a kind of a muscular 5-speed car, and I remember downshifting and getting kind of aggressive with my driving, and it's all right, bro, chill out. But that's I'm
so glad you have never behaved that way with me, because I would not.
Isn't it funny how?
But it's so
how calm I am as a driver now.
But the
I've
difference
really
between 20 years old and 35 is a big difference.
Yeah.
You know, it's true that like your brain is not fully formed before 25. Lots of poor decisions made between the years of 18 and 25.
You young bitch, get out, leave us. Don't ever mention your age.
Ever asked me on here?
Only someone. I've always said this. That only chicks that are under 25 will tell you their age. And if a chick's over 30 and you ask her age, she's going to say guess. And you better guess young.
You better guess 21.
Yeah, guess whatever age and minus by 5 years.
You know, I think I like to point out my age because most people think that I'm like 16.
Yeah.
So
well, you've got the height. You've got the height.
Yeah, I'm short,
thing going on.
and I just don't look of age. I don't even look like I'm
That's
21
such
to a lot of people.
You know, live that life, girl. You're going to look 10 years younger for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you're so lucky to go through your pandemic with youthful skin. You know what it's like to go through the pandemic, and you ever like close the cupboard mirror in the bathroom, and then you just have that. You know, you look at yourself and you weren't prepared. When you're in your 30s, you have to be prepared to look at yourself. You have to be like, all right, here we go.
You know, I was getting a facial the other day, and the doctor, when she walked in, she was like, so how many years young are you? And I was like, you're saying that so nicely.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Softening it.
They're ready to upsell you on some Juvederm. So, okay, we're gonna unpack a lot of different things here, but I do find it fascinating, and I'm sure a million people have brought this up to you, that, you know, like they say a dentist, what do they say the name of a dentist normally is? Like, you know,
dentist.
Dentist is a very common name for dentist.
Statistically, you have a higher chance of becoming a dentist if your name is Dennis.
And you're like a classical.
I don't make the rules. That's just like
so you're an oboist, which is a reed instrument, and your last name is Reed.
It is.
I believe it's spelt differently.
Yes,
Reed,
it is.
The wind instrument is spelled with 2 E's.
Yep.
But as a fellow wind instrument or former wind instrument player in the saxophone, you play a double reeded wind instrument.
Yes.
And how the heck did you get from growing up to becoming to, like, you know, getting your, is it your graduate degree in oboe? Is that what you're studying?
Yeah, I'm getting my master's degree in oboe right now. I'm almost done. But I played oboe since the 6th grade. I played flute first, and I never thought like, oh, I'm going to be an oboist. It wasn't. Some people are super convicted about it as soon as they start. I was kind of like, this is fun. Like, I'm pretty good at it. And I wanted to play the oboe because a girl in my school, she has no idea. There was this girl, she was 2 years older than me, and I thought she was the coolest, like, prettiest, just smart. I just was obsessed with this girl. We were not friends, but she played the oboe, and so I was determined to also play the oboe.
Isn't it funny how something so simple like that can be just to lead your life?
Yeah, and she for sure is not pursuing oboe now. And yeah, I just had a really good experience in high school, like playing in an all-state orchestra in Michigan. And I decided to apply to a bunch of schools for engineering, and like 3 of them I applied for oboe as well. Just like, well, what the heck, like, this is fun, I might as well see. And I got rejected from Berkeley for engineering, and I got accepted into the Eastman School of Music, which is a pretty good music conservatory, and it was like my top choice for music, and Berkeley was my top choice for engineering. And I kind of thought as like a sign. I was like, okay,
yeah,
someone's telling me to go play the oboe and see what happens. And
all because there was a pretty chick who played oboe before you.
Yes.
That's how it works. I mean, like, I got into baseball. I played it my whole life, and I can remember being 7 and getting some affirmations from another guy's one of the coaches. You know, I grew up without a dad, and this coach was like, oh, I was a catcher. I was a pudgy kid, so when the pudgy kid, they make you catch. And they were like, oh, he catches everything. And they were calling me like the vacuum, because I was sucking up.
Praise is powerful.
Unbelievable. I'm chasing that high from when I was 7. I was like, I just need a dad to compliment me one more time, please. Somebody write in. And that's kind of, when you're good at something, you want to please people by showing them that you're so good at it. Now, of course, if you end up hating that thing you're good at, which happens all the time in pro sports and stuff, people can hate what they're good at. That's a different story. But if you love what you're doing, you know, that can resonate with others. I mean, no pun intended, with music, very much so. I mean, you could like play a note and you could technically hit the note and it means nothing. And then someone who just loves what they're doing, it's like an extra thing. So what do you think's next for you with oboe?
Well, I have applied to come back to USC for another degree because it's been very unfulfilling to be doing music during the pandemic. And I feel like I'm happy that I'll have a master's degree. Like that opens a lot of doors in terms of teaching and work, but it doesn't really get me like where I want to go. Like I would love to be playing in an orchestra and that's performing. Like that's really what I've always wanted, but it's definitely felt like a year off in a way.
It's a tough instrument to like no one hears about like that solo oboist. It's, Jack Johnson didn't play his oboe hits. It's like acoustic is like or piano is like the way where you can like sing and songwrite. That must be tough if like you rely on a companionship with 100 other instruments.
Yes. Well, that is also what I love about it is that like I want to play with other people. So like you can be a soloist as an oboe player. There are plenty. They release CDs. They're not like popular in the mainstream necessarily, but like I know of plenty of soloists who are oboe players. But I really just like playing with other people, and I think that like that magic from playing, for me, I experience it when I'm in a group with multiple people. So it's definitely been hard during the pandemic to not play with anyone, or like the whole reason I went to get my master's really was to play in an orchestra at USC and take lessons. Like it's not really about the classes I'm taking, and you can't do those things very easily online. So
now if you're in musical theater and you date someone, they call it a showmance. Is there a term, or like people that like comedians, they chuckle fuckers. There's terms, hockey pucks. There's a cheat cleat chasers. There's literally a term for everything. Is there a orchestra term for dating within the orchestra?
I don't know. I know that it's kind of taboo to date someone within your same instrument. So
that's where you got to draw the line.
Yeah. So and I mean,
are you a brass gal? You like a good trombone?
Yes. Or there are certain like cliches about like certain instruments always like wind up together or whatever. Like,
what are they?
I think like the one for oboe, I've heard a lot of people say that oboists always date trumpet players.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, would you say that saxophones and flutes have a connection?
I don't know.
I always felt like the sax and the flute were always eyeing each other. I don't know about you, but we're in my high school band. I'm about to flare up on some band here. We would always be sitting across from each other in the semi-arch. So the saxophone is, there because you got your legs spread with the sax in between you.
My entire band, the only girls in band were playing clarinet and flute.
Yeah.
That was it, except for me and like two other girls.
Yeah, Tasha was a percussive, which makes sense.
I started on French horn. It was terrible.
I would have guessed French horn.
Terrible, so bad.
Tasha was she was good at banging on doors, so they just gave her a little drumstick.
Yep, they moved me to percussion.
Gave her a little bit of porta potty in case she relapsed and had to pee. And then, but yeah, I mean, music's good for, I never wanted to pursue it on the next level, but I really enjoyed the camaraderie. And I've always wondered, and this might just be a high school thing, but the stereotype from American Pie was obviously very sexualized with like people that are in bands. Like it's always been a very well-known stereotype that band students are always like,
promiscuous.
Yeah, but I've thought a lot about this, and I wonder, is it because it's one of the few activities that's co-ed in high school?
Maybe. I haven't thought about that. Like it's not like sports or anything. I will say I've mostly dated musicians. Pretty much since high school. Just
classical musicians, or like do you have a type or anything?
I don't know if I have a type. I've dated, classical musicians, yes. I don't know if I've ever dated someone who did like jazz or pop music, but I think it was more like those were the people that I was around.
We're screening you because this is step one in getting you onto the next season of Bachelor, which we'll probably shoot later this year. Who knows? But you said, because I just dick around with the live stream, and I don't know if you mentioned it or someone brought it up, but chatting the live stream said that you would be interested in being on the show.
I did mention it. It was it's kind of been a joke, like with me and
It's always a joke until you walk out of that limo and then you're like, what have I done?
It's always been something that I was like, that would be hilarious and different, and I wouldn't say no. Okay, but I've never like I don't know how you get on a show like that. Like, I don't.
You follow the link in the commercials. They have the link. Nominate someone.
I don't think if I like signed up myself, I would get anywhere.
Well, it depends heavily on the lead, right? So you're on the younger side, but they have been casting young, and you represent a type. You've got, with the nerdy sort of. It's just a vibe, They're literally going to be looking at different. They're going to get, they're going to get 85,000 influencers.
Yeah, but that is true. It's true that that's kind of how it works these days. I mean, you would definitely it would be good if you had multiple people nominate you for sure.
Right.
But you live in Los Angeles, so you're going to show up to the interviews super quick. They always cast 6 people from LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like, he's from Redondo.
Well, they're going to call her oboist from Michigan.
From Burbank. Yeah, that's true.
They're going to play away from the lives in Koreatown vibe.
But there are, I met with an agent in New York a few years ago for social media representation who reps a lot of the people who have been contestants on The Bachelor, and his first piece of advice to me was like, would you be willing to go on The Bachelor? And I was like, I don't know. We were dating.
Maybe.
Let me think about it. See how it goes. But I think it's true that having a connection to people who are past contestants definitely puts you to the front of the line. I mean, look at Matt. He's went straight to being The Bachelor.
Or they don't always showcase it, but I do think that in past years, people know each other. I think that I heard that Ivan was friends with somebody.
Which one was Ivan?
He was the finalist, the mixed race guy who finished third.
Okay. Was friends with somebody else who's been in the franchise?
Yeah, he said he had met somebody in Dallas that had been on it. I don't know if it was before or after the show. It seemed like before. He knew of some people.
Now, do you have any issues opening? Do you think you'd have any issues opening up?
I don't know. It would depend about what. I'm not generally very closed off. I mean, you can ask me whatever you want, but
do you think you would do well on the show?
I have no idea. I would want to think that I would.
I think you would do well in the sense that I think you wouldn't be the threat of the. I don't think you would be, because there's always that girl who I don't remember a few years ago. Olivia was the tall news. I don't know if she was tall, but she was a news anchor, and she was kind of blonde.
$1 million smile. You could see every one of her teeth.
You're gonna come in there, and then all of a sudden it's
the sleeper
down to hometowns, and it's what's going on with the oboist over there?
I just don't know. For me, I don't think I would have the personality type that does well. I don't know. I think I'm such a pushover, and I loathe confrontation, and I have fat eyebrows, so I feel like I attract a lot of nastiness just because I have mean looking eyebrows.
Yeah, the whole place would be what's Tasha thinking about? And it's Del Taco. She's thinking about Del Taco, but she looks like she's angry.
But I think I would struggle with a lot of that sort of drama that they create on the show. I don't know that I would I don't know that I would handle it well.
Yeah, that would be hard. I haven't had a large group of girlfriends ever either, so I don't even know how I would handle being around that many women.
It might be intimidating.
I was gonna say they would like to hear that, because that's immediate drama if you don't have experience navigating the world of 32 women living in a mansion together.
Yeah, my best friend actually, she and I met on BFF Bumble of all things in LA because we both liked The Bachelor.
Wow.
And she was the only person I met from it, and she's just super cool. So
BFF Bumble, is it just a subset of Bumble?
Yeah, it's instead of selecting that you want to go on dates or whatever, it's a separate. It's still on the app, but you just have different preferences.
So you swipe and you look at each other's photos and you see if you have a good vibe together.
Yeah, if you have things in common, you live close by.
Yeah, because I moved here and I didn't know anyone. And I was going to school, so that was a little bit easier. I was meeting, musicians at USC, but it's a graduate degree, so I lived in Koreatown. I don't have a roommate.
Yeah, it's not like you're living on campus in the dorm and meeting lots of people.
That could be very tough in grad school. Yeah. You don't have that orientation process.
And I didn't, I don't really know, I don't typically go out to do things where you can meet other girls. My extracurricular activity was salsa dancing. And I did meet people doing that. And like I met friends who were in a class that I took, and like my teachers were my friends. But it wasn't like the same kind of thing as like meeting somebody who has similar interests as you or is a similar age to you. Like a lot of the people I was meeting through that were older than me.
How did you suss out that you guys were a good match? Like, how do you get it? How do you get it from BFF Bumble to meeting up for coffee or something?
Well,
and my second part of the question is, how do you know that it's not someone trying to hook up with you?
Well, because if you go on Bumble and you want to date women as a woman, you can do that.
I feel like there's a lot of lesbians that use BFF Bumble.
I think you're obviously going to say like what you're looking for, and like you're going to write all that in your bio. So you're going to know. Like, yeah, it's going to say I'm into men, I'm into women, I'm into both. And you're going to check one of those boxes. And then there's going to be like, I'm looking for a friendship only, I'm looking for a relationship. Yeah. And you're going to check one of those boxes.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious with my friend Olivia that I hope she doesn't mind that I'm calling her out, but we matched, or like we met up and watched The Bachelor together at my house, and she brought wine. And it was at first I was super nervous. I was like, what are we going to do? Like, what's going to happen? And then we just talked about The Bachelor, and seemingly that's the only way I meet people these days.
Yeah, you're 2 for 2 here.
Well, then let's give Bachelor franchise some credit for creating not only relationships and marriages, but friendships.
I've always said this, that The Bachelor, I'll be as critical as possible about the show, in a lot of ways, but for me as a comic, it's the closest thing I can talk about, and there's like a common denominator of people that follow it where I can make jokes and kind of play on the human condition, whereas like I'm not going to go break down the lead character of Scandal. These aren't real people.
Yeah.
Like, you want to hear about the real people and their issues that they had, and like we've said before with Colton, we've all got a piece of these people inside of us that's not good, not healthy, or there is love, or this like,
and there's funny in the failure too.
Yeah.
You know, like all of us are flawed, deeply flawed individuals.
What's funny is that you both have questioned whether or not you would be good on the show, and you've both banged down the door of exes. Tasha's like, I don't think I possess the dramatic element.
I would be dramatic.
On the cobblestone.
I could be dramatic if I needed to be.
I think what happens is...
Yeah, but that was like on a dark street in the middle of the night, and there weren't any witnesses.
But these shows,
you know what I mean? Like when you're on national television, you want to put on your best behavior.
They obviously booze you up, but you also don't get much sleep. They cut out... What's been interesting with the show, because it's been on for 20 plus seasons, is that social media has taken this crazy addiction upwards. And so in a normal world, a normal show would kind of like, it'd lose its allure. But the show's actually gone through the roof because these are people that haven't, for the most part, spent a day without their cell phones, all being told to go sit in this like jury selection area and then ruminate. And what we've noticed with this past season, and I hope people that don't watch The Bachelor can follow along with this conversation. I think it makes sense. I think it's enough in our like lexicon of pop culture. But you get guys like Brendan, who was ruminating a lot about what Tasha would be doing on her fantasy suites with the other guys. Because what's going on?
I think that was a little bit manufactured. I think that was a little bit manufactured. He was getting nervous. He was sweating because he was like, oh, shoot, I'm getting to the end and I'm not that into this. I think he was starting to question his, like, really where he was.
Yeah, I think he wanted the first date so that he could leave right away. Like, I think he had figured out that he was probably going to tell her he wasn't ready and leave, and he got the last date, right? So he had to wait through all the other two guys' dates. And I think that's why he seemed so anxious. I think he was like, I'm going to break up with her.
The way it used to be is you would... They've changed it different seasons, but you used to not mingle with the other finalists when it was Fantasy Suite Week.
Yeah.
So... Again, it's an incredible story, because with what I see as when I make this Bachelor content is you've got a heavy group of sort of evangelical, the middle America that wants everyone to be like,
they root heavily for like the Christian,
but they have no clue. But there's no breaking down of what's going on in the fantasy suite. And I'm not against like if someone decides to have sex with the final 3 contestants, but it still even baffles me when I remember like, oh, this is happening on Disney essentially on ABC. And they're like, they'll blur out a butt cheek, right? They'll kind of Photoshop someone's side boob. You know, with Claire, they had to build, Tasha's, you know, in the fashion world, so she noticed they were like building new dresses to keep her side cleavage from showing. Yet
was excessive.
Yeah, well, Claire's excessive. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, lights out, and then they're all banging in an Airstream or whatever they're doing. And again, I don't have any sort of, but like, do you think you'd be able to handle that? Like falling for someone and knowing they're going to test the waters with someone else?
You know, I mean, I would say now that I would. That's not, but who knows in the moment how much.
Like jealousy, if you know that your relationship's going somewhere, but you're wondering, is their relationship also in the same place?
Do you even have a book to read? They're on a date, and then all of a sudden the fireworks go off, and you're like, I hear fireworks. We know what's next. Like, you just... You know what's going. They never show what's really going on in the house as the other people are on the date. And what's interesting on the show is that you'll see friendships made for life, but at the same time, there's two different things happening. There's a fraternity and a sorority kind of vibe to like learning to like live and coexist with people going through the same experience. Yeah. And then there's also, you're all fighting for the same love and attention of whoever the lead is.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the leads give the perspective. I think even Tasha might have said this, that she wanted to exhaust her other options. She wanted to like make sure that the choice that she knew she wanted to make was the right one by like evaluating the other, the remaining
exactly the opposite of what Claire did. And that was my, you know, I really enjoyed Claire. She took so much heat, but I really liked her a lot. I liked that she was like strong and opinionated and wasn't going to take any bull crap.
The problem,
but
to interrupt,
she really like just showed her cards. Like she didn't play it out at all. She didn't give herself the opportunity to be surprised by somebody. With
people that say like, I'm just going to tell you how it is. Most likely, those are people that have an issue. It's not about that she was strong-minded. It's that she created drama when it didn't exist. And she was a perfect example of someone ruminating over like her image. And you know, we find out afterwards that she's highly anxious and an introvert. So like clearly she was overthinking every scenario. And when the guys wouldn't look at her in the right way, she literally started attacking them, being like, "Oh, you're not here for me." And it's like, whoa, could she? I mean, she would be the type of person that. When you're dating them, if like you've ever like brought your baggage into a relationship and you immediately see someone's red flags, it doesn't mean they're a bad person, but like you got to like sort of hide your scar tissue till you get to know somebody in a way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's an opportunity for that deep conversation. If somebody like brought out all their deepest, darkest secrets on the very first date, on the very first night, people would be upset.
Tasha, did you want some of this red wine? Are you finished with yours?
I'm not, but
You're not finished?
Here, watch this.
I must have not. Yeah.
This is a chug time.
Yeah, you help yourself there, and I'm gonna take this moment to fill up the red wine here. Here, take that. Oh, I just spilt a little bit. I got a little red wine on our mic cords here. Maybe that'll solve the buzz problem that we have. So the next step in picking Lisa's brain is going to be to find out what went wrong with the last relationship here, which I'm excited to hear about. Now, so you weren't finished with your rosé?
I chugged it.
You chugged it? And this is a Beyond Red blend. Now, if anyone follows us from Vlogmas, you'll know that Tasha bought on Christmas Eve a 12 Days of Christmas wine set. She bought it 11 days late and got it at a very fantastic deal.
$50 off.
Lisa, we're at that part of our relationship now where we just look for deals. So Tasha got these wines because at Walmart they were selling a 12-pack of these wines. In these, when I say 12-pack, I mean a 12-ounce can of wine. 12 of these
glasses
for $80. And I think Tasha got these
70.
for 20
just
something.
Keep inflating.
I'm inflating it. But when you're ready, I'll give you some of this red wine if you want some. But I noticed your rosé's still working. You're working overtime over there. So we're talking dating. Tell us what it was like to take your relationship into quarantine and not make it out with together.
Okay, so, well, it's kind of weird because I've been like recently single in the middle of a pandemic. So that is difficult in its own way. And like I didn't get that like, oh, it's the pandemic, here's how everyone's dating or whatever right now. With my relationship, we were actually very close to breaking up before the pandemic started, like right before.
Like things were just a little rocky.
Things were very rocky.
And living together at that time?
We were living in separate places. So we'd been long distance since we met, essentially, which was crazy.
So how does that work with you? You guys met, obviously, when you were together, or
yeah, okay, so I'll give like a very brief overview of how we met in the beginning of it. I was living in Rochester. It was in March of 2019, and I was about to graduate, and I'd already gotten accepted to USC, so I knew I was going to move to Los Angeles. And I was like, I had been dating I was single for like 8 months or something since at that point, and I'd just been like dating, and we met on Tinder or something, some dating app. I don't even remember which one. And he like made a comment about like that I put in my profile, like, oh, I'm moving to LA eventually. Cause I didn't want to like, at that point I was like, I don't know when this is going to be. I don't want to something serious. I'm moving to a new city.
You wouldn't give people enough notice to know that, like, this is my life plan. It might be happening very
if that's
soon.
not something you're into, that's fine.
Yeah.
So don't hang out with me. And we messaged, and he was like, yeah, well, I'm leaving in 2 days to go back to Colorado, which is where he lives. And he had just gone back from living in Thailand for a month. And was visiting his family, and we got coffee, and it was really truly like one of the best dates I think that either of us had been on. We just really connected, and it was almost like because we had no other choice than to see each other that day, and then we weren't going to see each other again, presumably. Like, we didn't plan to see each other again. So that's how we started dating, and then he went back to Colorado, and I was still living in Rochester, and we spent like a week together at a time, starting in like maybe early June.
So just like flying back and forth to visit?
Yeah, so I flew out to see him. I was traveling for an oboe thing over the summer, so I flew to see him in Boulder. So that was like our second date or whatever, right? And then he travels. He got a new job, and he travels for it, which is how I wound up staying with him over this past summer. But he was working nearby where I was living, and so I would go see him on and off. And then he came to visit me in LA, like once I had moved here.
So what made the decision to go from possibly breaking up to kind of trying to push through the pandemic? Did you think it'd bring you closer together, or was it kind of one of those like, let's just survive this global pandemic first?
It was more like he was really kind of pushing, I think, for us to break up more than I was. I was more like, the whole time I have been very much like, let's make it work. We have this great connection. Like, we love each other a lot. Things are hard because we're apart, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be worth it. And when we were about to break up, it was right before I was supposed to go see him where he was working, and it was like spring break or something at USC. And so I convinced him to let me go see him and like try to figure it out in person, and I think he kind of thought like, okay, we'll see each other for a week, and we'll break up, and she'll leave, and it'll be this, like, we'll have like a simple goodbye rather than like
you'll have some
all
closure
the time.
because you're in person.
Yeah. And I went into it thinking like, okay, I'm gonna convince him to keep dating me.
I'm you. I'm the same way. Like, all right, I'm bringing my toolbox, and I'm gonna fix this thing right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you that, like, okay, we'll have a nice time, and if we break up at the end, it's okay. But in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna show up and convince you that we shouldn't break up, and that this is like part of us being long distance, not
and
like
yes,
us
exactly.
not being
With
compatible.
long distance, you start to fill in the blanks of like red flags and go like, well, this is because we're not together, and if I can only do X, Y, and Z, which is the classic codependent thing to do.
Yeah.
If I can only do these things, I will make it better.
Yeah, and we had a lot of like communication issues being long distance, and because I was salsa dancing all the time, and he didn't really like understand. So like we had very like different ideas of like I think he wasn't convinced of how much I wanted to be in this relationship and only this relationship. And so I was kind of like, well, the only way I can show you is in person. one of his love languages is physical touch, for sure. So it was kind of like a last-ditch effort.
Now, did he know that? Did he tell you that was his love language, or did you have to like figure it out? Like, were you like relationship therapying him to stay with you?
He never would have said that it was his love language, but I knew that like the physical aspect of a relationship was very important to him, because that was something we talked about, being long distance. Did
he know what was important to you? Like, did he care? Because and I ask this because a lot of times when you're codependent, you're pushing into things, and the other person, whether they care or not, you'll still pursue them in a way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he understood what I wanted, but he was always kind of the person like, well, I can't be that person for you, therefore we should break up or whatever. Like everything, it kind of felt like,
so there was no compromising on his end, you felt like.
I definitely felt like that, and then we would stay together, and so I was like, well, that's the compromise, that we're like, he's not just leaving or whatever. I've convinced him that, and I've convinced myself that this is working. And I'm relatively independent. Like I didn't like worry about him. You know, I wasn't like obsessed with him texting me every hour of every day. He still has a very like time-consuming, difficult job, so we didn't always get to talk. But there were definitely aspects that like I had things that I wished we could have done that I let go of for the sake of staying in the relationship. That if I had insisted, we would have just broken up earlier.
Tasha and I heard a very great quote by Marianne Williamson today. Do you remember what it was? I told you to remember it, but I know I'm putting you on the spot here. But it was something on the lines of, you got to say it under the microphone. Tasha's drinking wine and dog watching at the same time.
You're going to learn your lesson. It's up to you whether you're going to learn it
with like joy or through suffering.
Yeah, exactly. With pain or...
you're going to get, and again, I'm not pointing you out because these are all lessons that of course we put ourselves through miserable circumstance sometimes to learn a lesson. But what do you think the overall lesson was through the cycle of that relationship?
I mean, it definitely taught me a lot about how much I care about a relationship. Like I don't want to quit early. You know, like I want to know.
You want to give it a fair.
Yeah.
You want to give it a fair shake.
And I think it taught me that I want someone who is also going to do that. And that if I'm the one that's constantly like, we need to make this work, that's not the person for me. And no matter how many other things make them seem like they are, like no matter, I think this relationship in particular, there was a lot of like chemistry and passion, and partly because we were apart for so much of our relationship, when we were together, it felt really special.
So the good aspects would be like that you guys were good in the moment when you could be together. That would be.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, what's tough is anything from as little as like having good sex, being like sexually compatible to we look good in photos. I mean, anything as simple as that can be a reason to want to hold on to a relationship. Oh, my mom said she liked him. How many times?
My younger brother really liked him.
Exactly. And you go, well, so-and-so likes him, Steve likes him, then I guess I can I can look over the fact that he's a D-bag on the other occasions because, And
the other thing for me was like when I met him, I was convinced that he was my soulmate. Like the day we met, I was like this. I mean, I was 21, so I was young and had been in a couple, like 3 or 4 longer important relationships up to that point.
You thought you were soulmates. Yeah,
which
put so much pressure.
It put a lot of pressure, and I hate being wrong. So part of why I held on for so long was like I was convinced. I told all of my friends. I was like, this is the one. This is it. Like, no matter what, like, we can work through difficult times, because that initial connection to me was something that I hadn't experienced before. So I think what I really learned was that I think people probably experience that more than once, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
How fresh is the breakup, and was it one of those... How did you know? Because it sounds like you had revived it a few times. How did you know this is dead and stop convincing yourself that there was another shot at it?
Well, so when we were about to break up in February, I went to go see him, and then the pandemic school down for me. So I had no reason to leave. Like, I was going to have to go back to school, and then maybe we would have had a different circumstance. But I had no reason to leave, and I was like, well, why don't I just, like, things are going okay, like, why don't I just stay with you right now? And, like, traveled with him while he was working and stuff. And then we broke up pretty soon after I got back to Los Angeles. And I had spent, like, a month in his apartment while he was working, so he wasn't there with me. He had to go back to work, and there were a whole bunch of things that happened. When I got back here, I kind of felt like, okay, he's, like, we're having a lot of space, like, we're not talking all the time, and I felt like this is a good thing. You know, like, we have gotten to this point where we know each other so well, and we spent so much time living together that we could handle this, like, brief moment of separation. And it was pretty much after that he was like, I think we should break up. And he was coming to visit me.
He was like not at that point in his life where he could do a serious relationship.
You know, that is a lot of, like, what he told me was that the things he wants to do, he can't do while having a serious girlfriend, especially one that is long distance.
Well, I mean, yeah, he sounds like he's jet setting and going around and just not being in a place where, you know, where he can responsibly be a good guy, be a good boyfriend at least.
Yeah, and I think that for me it was like, okay, we have been through this conversation so many times, and I can't fly out there right now and convince you otherwise.
Who wants to be responsible for that? Like, why would you want to have to convince somebody?
Yeah, so I think
it deserve to give.
So you essentially gave up. You gave up trying to resuscitate something he was trying to kill.
Yes. Yeah. I did try a little bit longer after that. Like, after that conversation.
Codependents don't get enough credit for the work that they put in.
Well, that's why I related so much to your videos about Colton and talking about what it was like to be codependent, because I didn't really realize that that was me. And, like, I knew that I liked being in relationships. I have been in several serious relationships, like, more so than other people my age, I think. And I'm just kind of willing to stick it out for that reason, you know?
And that'll be good when you're in a situation where it's reciprocated. And I think, look, I've read so much about why codependency is bad, but I think there's a healthy level where it's like, if that's what your addiction is, that you want to love somebody and put their needs over your own, not the worst, but you need to be healthy. But if you can take care of yourself, then you can manage that addiction. Now, what happened with Colton? You know, I'm no psychologist, but, like, yeah, you're in this stay-at-home order where, like, you can't go meet new people or whatever. You're kind of trying to do a long distance, which is essentially a stay-at-home order because you're like, well, I'm not going to go meet new people, but I've got nowhere else to be. Your hobbies, you're not going to school. You know, if school's on shutdown, I mean, so many variables can throw people easily into a real bad situation.
Yeah, and I think it was hard for both of us because we had a lot of differences in terms of, like, I grew up very lucky. You know, my parents helped me live in all these places. My grandma paid for me to go to college. Like, that is a privilege that I had, that I didn't, like, grow up lacking resources to pursue what I wanted to do. Like, I'm a classical musician. That's not something you can do easily without that kind of privilege. Like, I couldn't have bought my instrument when I was 17 if I didn't have help from my family. And losing oboe during the pandemic seems like you could see it, like, he kind of saw it as like, well, you're pursuing your dream. I've never gotten to do this. I'm in this job that is really hard, that I don't really like. I didn't finish college. And he had all of these, like, hang-ups about how I was upset that I couldn't go to school. Like, I wasn't, you know, I couldn't play in an orchestra, and I was having a really hard time dealing with, like, well, what does this mean for my career and, like, my passions? Like, I was just really down, as a lot of people were, when, like, the thing you care about the most is in a way taken away from you.
And there's no plan for that.
And everything's harder. Yeah. It's like not only is this your dream, it's also your social circle. It's also like your daily get out of bed reason.
Get out of bed reason. That's a good one, Tasha. Tasha loses her get out of bed reason.
I'm staying in bed.
Let me tell you something. She can spiral. If I wasn't there to make her a coffee with a little whipped cream to get her out of bed, there could be days, Tasha, where you just don't have a reason. As long as you can plug that iPhone in.
Oh yeah. Watch a little TV.
Watch a little TV. You don't need to get out of. And it's what you realize is that once part of adulting is realizing you have no one telling you missed practice. You have no one telling you didn't show up for something. A lot of what we do, we talk about this as gig employees and. Yeah. Is that like no one's going to tell you you're not trying hard enough or you're not doing this, and then all of a sudden,
or hold you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
But obviously, mental health is something most people don't realize until they lose it. How valuable it is to have that steady bedrock.
And I felt like in this relationship, we really struggled with the fact that like he was still working during this whole time. So, like
his sense of normalcy didn't go away.
Yeah, and he felt like I still had the better life, right? Like I still was pursuing my dream, and like and in a lot of ways I had a really amazing summer. Like I got to spend, like we're jumping around, but I spent like 5 months or something living in a renovated school bus with him.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Okay.
Dave, we've lost an afro.
That's all right. I bought an 8-pack of those.
Oh no.
This is the best thing to ever happen to the podcast. Is the dog going to town? Well, he probably doesn't want it.
Oh boy. Oh, red wine.
Here, just don't let him touch the wine so he doesn't track it around.
All right.
We have a mascot, folks. We've got it.
He loves you.
Well, for sure, Tasha's going to be puppy shopping after this. For
They're
sure.
hard to get in Los Angeles right now.
I can't imagine.
He's got something to say.
Oh, okay.
I can't imagine that Boone was this boisterous, but
Boone was not this boisterous. Boone has always been a lazy dog.
Having a dog that's going on 13 years old, it's fun to see a dog that actually knows how to move a little bit. There's your mic flag.
Oh, I don't think I need that.
Your microphone. So we appreciate people taking part in the doggy ADD, which I must say I think we've all done a fantastic job of keeping focus because I know Tasha just wants to look at the dog all day, and I get it. But So was living in the school bus. Now I'm going to project here, but I can imagine there are women listening to this hating your ex because he sounds like the guy who just wants to live his life, and you were kind of along for his journey. Was there a feeling that you were along for his journey? Like, hey, if you can make it, I'll be in Des Moines, on the bus, or.
Honestly, no. He was very adamant the whole time that he didn't want my life to revolve around what he was doing. Like, it was more out of convenience because of the pandemic. Like, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the ability. Like, I was in online school. I didn't want to go back to LA and live alone when everything was shut down. And I'm also like, I'm a classical, like I play the oboe. I can play the oboe anywhere. So I was practicing and I was making videos and like I was doing my own thing. Our living situation was just on the road. So I got to experience a lot of really cool things. He was very adamant that he was like, I don't want your life to just be my life like that. I think that was
even with him being adamant about that, you found that you were still willing to adapt to his life?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't.
Like, how far would you have gone to make this work?
Uh-oh.
Oh, he hit that.
Oh, no.
I love that he hit the let's talk about sex button. Very nice. He's done more DJing work than I have.
Okay, well, let's see. How far would I have gone to make this work? I don't know.
Was there any point where you would have dumped him?
Probably not, but I don't dump people.
This is great for Bachelor. She's not going to dump you. Get her on the show. No, look, I'm laughing, but I'm very similar in the sense where I'd be willing to be the giving tree and just shave my core down to a stump.
Yeah, I mean, like to put it in perspective, like I was willing to stop salsa dancing if that upset him so much. And this is something like I've been a dancer.
So we're talking jealousy because you're dancing with a guy?
Yes.
Gyrations?
Yeah. And my parents are going to hate this if they ever watch because my parents are both dancers. And so I grew up dancing. They own a dance studio together. And salsa dancing was just kind of like something I found in college that it was like a way to keep dancing that was fun, and that's all. It's just a way to dance for me. And we had like multiple fights about this, and it was this whole thing.
Tough one, because I'm kind of on his side right now where I go,
yes.
Well, I mean, imagine Rico Suave over there with the moves.
There is that side of it where it's like, okay, I can understand where he was coming from in he doesn't know who I'm dancing with. Like, going out social dancing was something that I stopped very like early on when I realized this was going to be a problem, especially being long distance.
When you say social dancing, you mean going to a salsa club where it's imagined that you'd go on the dance floor and just randomly meet a guy and you start dancing. So you stopped that?
Yeah, I stopped doing that, and I started taking classes instead, which I liked way better. So like that was way more fun for me to just go to class, and I don't know what he did.
He's fine. He's good.
And like take with the same people. I was practicing with then people I knew, and I just wouldn't go out on the weekend, and that was fine. But we still even had like issues around that because I was then on a performance team. So part of the gig with my classes was that we were going to perform at an event in front of people, which I love doing.
Maybe traveling where you got to go.
Yeah, I was going to be like at a hotel in Orange County somewhere.
Oh, yeah. You're going to be at a hotel with a guy that you're going to be salsa dancing with. I mean,
yeah, so okay, it causes complications. And then as much as I can say, like, these people were my friends, I talked about my relationship with them. Like, he's not there to see that. He's never met them.
But it would be fair.
That's giving him like a lot of credit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But that's like how far I would be willing to go. Is that
wait, well, hold on, Tasha. You're giving the guy credit. I mean, it's a tough
like
place.
Being very generous with him. Doesn't he have relationships in his life where like he can understand, he can relate that it's just a platonic thing?
But we can understand
it's
that
his passion, and while it might look a little tricky from a distance, like you just gotta have a little faith.
She said his love language is touch.
Yes.
And so she's giving that to someone else.
Super wrapped up in it. Like, he was like, I don't even care if, like, he never felt like I was cheating on him. But the fact that I was letting some other man touch me at all, to him, it was like, it's sexual because they're doing it. Even though to me, I'm like, they're my friends. And
but when your aunt kisses you on the forehead, is that sexual?
Yeah,
you know, there's a there's a balance to all of it.
Well,
yeah.
I know. I mean,
like
even with
sexual touch,
even with the balance, I know. Like we talk about showmances, I know people that have been on the road on their theater tour and cheated on their partner because they end up spending so much time with someone else that they cross boundaries. Like I just know of these. It can
happen. It can happen. Again, and like I'm not that kind of person. Like I said, I would have done anything for this relationship. I was very loyal. I was not interested in anyone else ever. Like it wasn't an option for me. Like I didn't care that I didn't get to see him every weekend. Like if we saw each other once a month, I was like it's more about the connection. It was more about the connection to me than the physical relationship. But because the physical relationship was so important to him, that really got in the way because my physical relationship with other people was also important.
Compounded with the difference, with the distance, I mean.
Yes.
I'll say this.
It was,
This is why some people on YouTube like haven't liked the stances I've taken, is that I'd like to just, like, you're in the right here. You should be able to pursue your passion. He should be able to trust you. Yeah. But I still like to know why someone felt the jealousy they felt and say, all right, well, if you're going to look at it that way, then yeah, you have a valid point, but also, you know, there are ways to fix it. And he probably wasn't willing to go through the growth. Where like, if Tasha, like, if the thing that brought her joy was salsa dancing, I'd be like, I guess I'd have to find a way to love hearing her talk about it afterwards. Oh, what was it like?
Or you take up salsa dancing.
Or I take up salsa dancing. But, you know, obviously, But
and I tried to teach him a couple times, but I think it was intimidating because it's something that I have done for a very long time. And I like dancing a lot. And I'm, you know, like in a high level performance team. Like it was like just, you know, for fun. We weren't competing or anything, but I have been a dancer my whole life. So I think it can be intimidating.
For sure, when you're all rusty or you've never done it before, you're like,
and he wanted, like, he was like, well, you're not getting the same thing out of it dancing with me that you would be dancing with like one of your teachers. And while that's true, it's not the same. It didn't mean I didn't love dancing with him. And it was just something that we like ended up never agreeing on. And that was kind of a concession that I made, that I was like, I'm never going to convince him to feel the way I feel about it. And we had lots of discussions about like, how can we make this something that is acceptable for both of us? Because when I said like, I'll just quit, like I don't care, I just want to be with you, that upset him as well, because he didn't want me to quit something that I love. So there was definitely like we were trying to find a balance,
right?
But at that in particular, I felt like we just absolutely never were gonna be on the same terms.
Well, that's sort of heartbreaking, because obviously, you know, it's interesting. I think it's interesting to know that you're capable of giving up something you love for someone else.
Yeah.
Like I get that, but at the same time, you know, realizing that you were willing to do that should be something you look at internally and go, I need to take care of me. And that's so
right.
what happens so much after relationships. We're here when be like, oh, I'm worried about me. I'm investing in me. And I totally get what you're saying. Is like you need to rebuild this base of who you are, because so much is given to somebody, and then when the relationship ends, you're just some like little
I'm like, well, who am I now?
Bird without its feathers.
I was like, and the fact that I was willing to give it up was actually something that I struggled with. Like I would have done anything to keep this relationship together, and so who does that make me essentially? Like what are the things I care about? And I think that when the relationship ended, I really struggled with like I felt like I hadn't expressed myself in the relationship. Like a lot of things I was just like, okay, like that's fine, whatever. And so then I felt like I don't know how to say anything that I feel anymore. Like I really kind of like put up a wall, like, well, I just need to like be solid so that the things that he is upset about don't faze me, so that we can stay together.
We've had this issue, Tasha, where I have a hard time saying what I truly think, and I have a hard time saying no. When you're like, let's go on a hike, and I'm like, but I've got all these other things to do, and you're throwing this on me, and then it can turn into like, well, you know, it can turn into something else where I don't want to say no. I want to be able to put my foot down, but also I want to make you happy, and that's the struggle with a codependent. I don't know if you can quite understand. And I'm not pointing you out, Tasha, but this is what we do: is we kind of like, you know, use our own examples where we've considered Tasha to be more of a counter-dependent, where it's like if we fight, she's like, "Fuck you," and if we fight, I'm like, "But wait, you know, like let's figure this out."
But I think you're like making a very simplistic sort of like overview of what happens. My frustration with you in that sort of scenario is that I think that you're so hyper focused on whatever it is that's on your to-do list today, or goals you want to accomplish, or whatever is going on in your head right that moment, that you like forget about flexibility.
Yeah, we got to upgrade this equipment. If anyone wants to join our Patreon, you can help us buy some new equipment here. Patreon.com/thesap, patreon.com/thesap. I want to give a shout out to Liz Breen, who's one of our newer Patreon members and also a YouTube subscriber. So we thank you for that. You like how I just throw a random plug in there at any moment. So what we like to do with our relationship is look at, there have been moments where I haven't been flexible, but it might take me 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. It might take me 3 minutes, but in those 3 minutes, I'm gonna look like an a-hole.
You go through the full range of emotions.
Because I get attacked on a personal level when Tasha wants to go on a hike, and I gotta go to a mic. Because on the personal level, I go, I have to go get better at comedy so I can make money and provide for this family. But I don't say that. I just go, no, I gotta do this. and then she's like, well, why can't we just do a hike first? And I have to go, okay, well, if I shuffle this around. So for me, it's like it's reorganizing takes delicacy. And I would ask Tasha, and I think you've gotten better at this, but I would ask you to remember, if you're going to float new ideas by me, and again, this might be like sound enabling, but isn't it about like learning what the other person's flare-ups are and dancing around them? So yeah,
do you think that's because you're codependent and she's counter-dependent, or is that like more of a personality thing?
I think it's tough. It's always easy. Like the first thing I always say when I make like YouTube videos is like, look, I'm a piece of shit. I've been that guy. I've been this person. And what I hate most, I'll just digress for a second here. What I hate most is people that go, I'm gonna put my headphones on just to make sure it's not playing any unlicensed music. The dog just jumped on the equipment. What bothers me is when people go, oh, you know, they'll correlate me for like being able to forgive someone with me being able to enable someone. So like, I don't enable someone to be a stalker but I can understand what got them into that position.
Yeah.
And we lack this on the internet. We lack this basic empathy where we can relate to other people. And like I can relate to people that do really bad things. I mean, it doesn't mean I co-sign it or I believe in it, but I can just look at things and go, well, yeah,
it's important to be able to like take a look, like how did this person get here, so that you can like walk it back. You know, like when you see it in like digestible steps.
Because the hardest thing is how do you go?
It's a reflection.
You go, how did Colton Underwood buy a tracking device and put it under his ex's car? And I bet you, and again, saying this where I don't agree with it, I've never Googled. I did want to buy a tracking device, but it's because someone stole the battery twice out of my car. So I've been wanting to put a tracker on my battery, but that's for my own reasons. And legally, Penal Code 637.7, which I've learned the penal codes for this scenario, I would be allowed to track my own equipment.
Okay.
And I would, if I owned a store and you were using my work vehicle, I could track your vehicle, but I couldn't put a tracker on your car. That is illegal. That could be served up to 365 days in California. State prison. So, but with that said, was he trying to men are so stupid with wanting to find clues as to why the relationship ended. Did he really think she was with her ex, Kaylin, or whatever that guy's name was? Was there really a moment where he was like, if I could just find out? Was he like, if I could just find out how why she ended it with me, it was psychotic in nature to want to know that. But if I could just find out she's going to that place, I'll put a tracking device. So illegal, so not right, but would be really nice if he just admitted to like kind of like what that was, because people like you and myself and even Tasha could relate to be like, you banged a door down and peed on a guy's shoes or whatever you did over there, Tasha Marie. And I've been, by the way, I'm always going to take you seriously now when you say you have to use the bathroom. Like, let's get Tasha to the bathroom. And then I've been, guilty of just whatever cyber, going on someone's Facebook. Just because going on someone's Facebook to see where they are is easy and legal doesn't make it any less creepy than putting a tracking device on someone's car.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it any more right.
The one thing that I felt like I learned a lot from this relationship was something that my ex said, was that you never really know why somebody broke up with you. Even if they tell you, I don't like this X, Y, and Z thing that you do, or I don't want to be in a relationship. Sure. Like, they can say whatever they want, but you are never going to know the like gut reason that they did it. And that really helps me. Like, I still struggled with the breakup, but I was like, it doesn't matter why we broke up at the end of the day. Like, I can be like happy with who I am and how I am in a relationship and how I treat people. And that person's not my person, or the circumstances weren't right, and it's okay. And I find that I obsess more over just like trying to get someone to get back together with me than even like, well, are they with somebody else? Like, what's the motivation behind this? It was more just like, well, what can I do to convince them that they should be with me?
I wonder if you would
sometimes nothing.
I wonder if you would be the girl on Bachelor who goes back into the guy's private room to like make a situation better, and then he sends you home from there. I wonder if that's...
I hope not. I hope that I've learned that I think like I've definitely learned that dealing with something in the moment is not how everyone deals with something. Like, taking a breather would probably have helped a lot of my fights. In this past relationship, we fought a lot, and we fought very, like, in a way that I haven't fought with a lot of people in my life, or a lot of partners even. Just like, it was very explosive. And
you got to channel, sometimes you got to channel that to like giving Olivia a call. You got to go over there in BFF Bumble and give her a call, because sometimes we put all of our emotional labor on our partner when that should be worked out. It's almost like this. And again, your partner should be the person you confide in, but it's almost like when you go to court, you got to do like a lot of pre-court work before you present it to the judge.
Yeah.
And the judge being just how they perceive you, how you come off. So like, if you have something you want to tell your boyfriend, or if anyone's listening, your significant other, you really got to work out what it is you want to say and how you want to say it as best as possible, so you can communicate it fully. And a lot of times in relationships, it's you just, I'm never going to talk to you again. And then 2 minutes later, call him, babe, listen, here's the thing. It's like, you just go from like.
I would never say that. I would absolutely never tell someone I'll never talk to them again, because that is like, I'm immediately going to regret that decision.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot commit to that.
Yeah. You know, I don't, you know, what we've learned, and we've been together for 7 years now, is we've learned, I think, to choose our words wisely. Although I will say, Tasha love to drop F-bombs when you're angry. And what I've learned is no F-bombs, because I learned she'll go, you said blah, blah. So I go, all right, you know what? My decibel level is going to stay here. I'm going to talk gently. And, you know, so we've learned some rules of engagement. I think you would agree. We've learned some rules of engagement. So even when we have differences of opinions, we don't create a fire larger than it needs to be. Because you got to create fire. Sometimes she's like, all right, we're going to have to burn this area, but let's just torch the perimeter and create a burn line before we torch down the city, which we've probably done in the past, is proverbially torched cities down as we were just trying to search for the words. And so much of a relationship is trying to search for the words. But in the end, in circumstances where like you gave it the old college try, you tried your best, he wasn't going to meet you there. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And then you finally got to the answer. Like we said before, our Marianne Williamson quote of the day is, sometimes you learn your lesson through joy and sometimes through pain.
Lots of pain.
But that's just one of the ways where it singes into you. And hopefully with the next guy you meet, you understand not to go for a guy that's not willing to meet you in the middle. And also maybe learn that you need to not ever ditch whatever is core to your happiness.
Yeah. I think the other thing that like I really enjoyed about, especially the months that we lived together in his bus and traveled, is like I really found a different side of myself. Like I have always been like very kind of anxious person. I don't like to take a lot of risks. I don't like new things. I don't like new places. And like I learned how to travel. I saw parts of the world I had never seen before, or parts of the country, and I let a lot of that like control that I have issues with, that it goes along with codependency. Like codependency at the end of the day is like you want control over your like relationship essentially. Right. Like I wouldn't give up because the idea of not being in a relationship made me feel out of control.
Right.
And not being in this one. So it definitely taught me a lot about how to be flexible and to kind of like go with the flow and to live in the middle of the woods in a bus without a bathroom. Like there are a lot of things that
Tasha would love that, by the way. I think we've looked at some Airstream conversions.
Airstreams are so expensive.
So expensive. You got to spend 30 grand just to get. Well, look, we were literally about to get out of here. How great are these cords of these headphones that we have?
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
you took the phone part. I'm sorry.
No worries. So
it'll go back.
Oh, he's on it. Is he on it right now? Yeah, get that. I can't. I wish we had a.
You can't see. Come here. Come here.
I can't reach him. I think this is far more interesting to an audience than. I got him, but I didn't get this part. All right. Well, the funniest part is if there wasn't a dog here and we were just pretending to have a dog running around this whole time. I think the audio.
Oh no.
I think at the very least this will convince someone who listens. No, you can give him that. I don't care. I just don't think. I think if he eats it, it'll not be the best thing for him. Sound equipment. I think we're packing this up, folks. But I think that this will be at least a good reason for someone to check out the podcast. On YouTube. We did promise our really guests that we would throw these out because I bought a 6-pack. They're
destroying them.
They're very cheap, but this will be a good photo because that is a destroyed mic cover, which is no worries. No worries. It's the first casualty of 2021.
I brought so many things to try to keep him occupied so he wouldn't chew on the equipment.
We never had this with the dog, but we have an old dog. But anyway, I want to get you out of here. We come back and let us know how it goes. When the world opens back up, I know Tasha's going to want to go salsa dancing. So
oh my gosh, absolutely.
If there's ever an amateur night, I just
absolutely go.
I don't want. Here's where I'm at. I don't want some dude to pull Tasha aside and do the old limbo, whatever they do together.
Okay, there are ways to be very clear that you are at a salsa event and you're not looking to date. you just say no. If some guy is giving you a creepy look, don't dance with that guy. Like, I dance with people I know, which is why I started going to class, so that I could know who I know. And I would go with a group, and like other people have relationships and go salsa dancing. A lot of the times they're together and they both salsa dance. Like, my teachers are like that, but it's totally possible.
Yeah, well, good to know.
I'll be back in August, probably.
So are you heading back to Denver? Is that where you were?
Yeah, so I'm actually, ironically, so I mentioned earlier that my ex lives in Colorado. Well, he travels for work, but technically he lives in Colorado. And I was there over the summer by myself, or like staying with some of his friends. And I just love it there, and LA is not doing it for me right now. So weirdly enough, I am moving to Longmont, Colorado. It's like a suburb of Boulder. I don't plan on seeing my ex. I hope that's clear. It's not to do anything like that. You
just like the area.
I really like the area. It's beautiful. I'm going to have a house and a roommate.
Amazing.
There's a yard, and like there's a dog park, and
yeah, we drove through Colorado last year. We drove through Utah and Colorado, and it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, beautiful. But we had bad traffic in Colorado. Remember that?
There's a lot of traffic.
But that was like a Sunday afternoon. I do remember that day, because it was a
beautiful day, so everyone was at all the ski resorts.
Yes, there's always
a ton of traffic
for that, and just LA's. It's not the place.
It's a tough place right now. We're hanging here. You
guys have each other. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes a big difference.
We got each other and a lot of Chinese food to go.
I'm gonna miss the food, and I'm planning to come back. Like I said, to go to USC, to just get another degree and hopefully live with some friends this time, not by myself. But for now, I was like, well, school's online, and I want to go on hikes with my dog and not be yelled at on the street.
Is there anything that you would like to promote, that if people wanted to reach out to you, or your Instagram or anything else?
My Instagram is Lisa Reed Maker. It's Reed, R-E-A-D. Maybe you could put it in the notes or whatever.
Absolutely, I'll be in the show notes.
That's probably the best place to follow me. I have an Oboe Instagram. That's Reeds.
Readsreeds.
Yes, exactly.
That's complicated. Reeds.
If you want some more classical music content and not just me and the puppy, you can follow me there. And sometimes I post stuff on YouTube, like videos of oboe things.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, this was a fantastic, our first chat with a friend that we've met through. Although I will say, Vic's not been on the podcast, but one of our Patreon members, big supporters and friends, we met through, I think, Bachelor as well.
Wow.
And she lives here. I think we met. It's been so long, we don't know exactly where we met her. But it is a cool community, and we appreciate that you found not only us.
Well, you guys made it so easy. Like, I watch other people's live streams and I don't comment anything. Like, I watch videos. I'm not like going on every podcast I see to be like, hey, let me talk. Like, I kind of was just like,
Well, I have no idea what I'm doing on the live stream, and I'm just figuring out the software. As people who watch the live streams, I've seen I'm overheating cameras, things are getting shut down. But
people are talking in the comments. It's really nice. And some other people from the podcast or from the live streams have reached out to me and say hi, like Oz. I know he's super nice, and it's just been really great to just feel like a part of something.
I told
community.
I told Tasha, I end the live streams, and then I'll click out to the exit screen, and then I'll just read comments and respond, and the people will be like, "Bye, Oz. See you later, Susan. Take care there, Lisa." It's like,
yeah, we were talking about Bachelor on it, so I just was like, I'm going to throw it out there that I would, because I don't think a lot of people would say I would go on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. It's fun to watch.
You are at the right age if you did want to get into the pipeline of things, because you're not as young. How old do you say you are? 24?
23.
23? Mm-hmm. So you're not, because by the time you went to air, you might be 24 or 25,
right.
Just depending on how it all goes. But then, people stay in the system there. They go on this, they go on that. Sometimes they'll apply for one season. The casting loves you, but it's this person didn't want any chick with glasses. Their ex had glasses. They want nothing to do with glasses. Sorry, Lisa, you gotta, so it's
they're hard to film. You get a lot of glare.
Yeah, but you're not 38, where if you don't do this season, you're on your last egg and you got to go get married, like Claire was at.
I don't know if it's the best place to find your person. it would be hard, I think, for me going on The Bachelor and being like, well, I don't like whoever the Bachelor is. Like, you don't always know, like this season with Claire or whatever, you don't always know ahead of time who it's going to be.
But they usually pick a catch. It's like, odds are it's going to be a guy who's pretty cool. But then, if you don't want like a Republican race car driver, then Ari Jr. is not it.
The other thing is, like, I'm not usually into other contestants that have been on. Like, I'm not, like, I don't find myself like, oh, I would really like to date so-and-so who was on The Bachelorette or whatever, but I have a big crush on Noah.
Interesting.
Of all people.
Wait, which
Noah is the mustachioed man.
Oh, he annoys me.
The traveling nurse, Noah.
He annoys me.
I think he reminds me of someone, and that I figured out the other day that he reminds me of someone that I used to date like a long time ago, like my first boyfriend. They're very similar. So I wonder if that's part of it.
Did he play trumpet? We got to find out if Noah played trumpet. Hey, there it is, folks.
The first one.
I think we should end on a good brass joke there. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, and stay in touch. We're neighbors now, and bring the dog back. We'll play another time. I'll reinforce all of my gear for the dog.
Get a video with him and Boone.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, she was Lisa. That's Xander, and that's Tasha, and I'm Dave. Everyone, have a good one. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Oh, perfect timing. Lick it.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know what.